Dive into something super interesting today. We're talking all things astrology in 2025.
Ooh, exciting.
It really is. And it's not just your typical daily horoscope stuff anymore. I mean, we're seeing surveys, articles, market reports, you name it, all pointing to this like huge surge in astrology's popularity, especially with younger Americans.
Yeah, it's really quite something.
So that's got us thinking, is this a harmless trend or is there something deeper going on? Why are all these Gen Z and millennials turning to the stars for guidance? We're going to try to find out today. We've got a bunch of fascinating sources to dig into. And one that really caught my eye is this 2024 survey from EduBirdie. Get this, 63% of young Americans believe astrology can actually have a positive impact on their careers.
Wow, that's a lot. You know, when you consider the world these young people are facing, the job insecurity, the student debt, the uncertain future, I wonder if maybe astrology is offering them something more.
It's like in a world that feels so chaotic and unpredictable, they're looking for a sense of control, maybe some kind of cosmic roadmap to navigate it all.
Right. And Avery Morgan, the chief communications officer at EduBirdie, put it perfectly. In a Forbes article she said, young people are turning to astrology for solace and meaning. They're searching for something to hold on to in a world that often feels overwhelming.
So it's more than just like a fun trend or a fad. It's almost like a coping mechanism. Or a way to find their place in the world.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And the data from the EduBirdie survey really backs that up. 80% of the young people surveyed said they believe in cosmic guidance. And get this, 72% rely on astrology for making major life decisions.
Wow, 72%.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about what to wear today kind of decisions, right? This is serious stuff.
Oh, absolutely. They're using it for everything from choosing a career path to figuring out relationships, even making financial decisions.
No way.
And it's not all about predicting the future either. 39% said astrology helps them understand their own strengths and weaknesses better.
So it's almost like they're using astrology for self-discovery and personal growth, rather than just fortune-telling.
Precisely. And speaking of self-discovery, we can't talk about astrology in 2025 without talking about technology.
True. We've got to talk about these astrology apps like CoStar. I mean, over 20 billion users, that's huge. And I read somewhere that like a quarter of young women in the US are using it. But for those of us who haven't jumped on the astrology app bandwagon yet, what exactly is CoStar and what does it do?
Okay, so CoStar is basically like having a personalized astrology guide in your pocket. It uses your birth date, time, and location to create this thing called a birth chart, which is basically a snapshot of where all the planets were at the exact moment you were born.
So your birth chart is kind of like your own unique cosmic blueprint. And CoStar uses that information to give you personalized insights.
You got it. It gives you your daily horoscope, of course, but it goes way deeper than that. It tracks the movements of the planets and how they're interacting with your birth chart. And then it gives you insights into like your personality, your relationships, your career, pretty much every aspect of your life.
It's like having a personal astrologer on call 24/7. No wonder it's so popular, especially with the generation that's so tech savvy. But you know what else I'm curious about? If we're talking about the rise of astrology, what role is social media playing in all this?
Oh, social media is like throwing gasoline on a fire when it comes to trends. Think about it, 4.4 billion views for #horoscope on TikTok, over 18,000 astrology channels on YouTube. That's a massive online community.
It's kind of crazy how social media can create these echo chambers, where trends can just explode overnight.
Totally.
It's like everyone's suddenly speaking the same language, the language of the Zodiac.
And you know, after the isolation and uncertainty of the COVID pandemic, I think a lot of people were searching for a sense of community and shared experience. And astrology kind of provides that.
It makes sense. People were looking for answers, for meaning, for something to believe in. And astrology, with its focus on individual purpose and cosmic connection, it probably resonated with a lot of people during that time.
Oh, absolutely. And let's not forget the influence of celebrities. When you have high-profile figures openly embracing astrology, it definitely adds to its mainstream appeal.
It's like a stamp of approval. So we've got societal anxieties, the search for meaning, the rise of technology and social media, and even celebrity influence. It's like all these factors are converging to create this perfect storm for astrology's comeback. But before we get too carried away with all the positive aspects, we've got to address the potential downsides, right? Because not all the glitters is gold.
You're absolutely right. We've looked at the bright side, but like any tool or belief system, there can be a darker side to astrology as well. We need to stay balanced here.
Exactly. I was reading this article from FemLed News, and they pointed out that almost half of the young people surveyed admitted to being overly reliant on astrology. Some even said they couldn't make decisions without checking their horoscopes first.
Wow.
Is that something to be concerned about?
It's definitely a valid concern. While astrology can be a source of comfort and guidance for some, relying on it too heavily can potentially lead to anxiety and indecision.
Yeah, it's almost like giving away your personal agency, right? Letting the stars make your decisions for you.
Exactly, and that's where critical thinking comes in. It's so important to remember that astrology, like any system, has its limitations. You have to approach it with a discerning eye and not take everything at face value, and definitely don't let it dictate your life.
So how can people strike that balance? How can they use astrology as a tool for self-reflection and exploration without becoming overly reliant on it?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely delve into deeper as we continue our deep dive. But first, I think it would be helpful to explore some of the reasons why. So many young people are finding astrology so helpful and appealing. Because there's definitely more to this story than just societal anxieties and social media influence.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's unpack the appeal of astrology for this generation.
You know, when you really think about it from like a psychological perspective, astrology can offer a sense of structure and meaning, especially in a world that can often feel so chaotic and overwhelming. And for young people especially, facing so much uncertainty, it's like,
A cosmic anchor in a storm.
yeah, exactly. And then there's that whole element of self-discovery. Astrology encourages you to look inward, to understand your strengths and weaknesses, to see yourself as part of like this larger cosmic tapestry.
I can see how that would be appealing,
Yeah.
especially for young people who are still trying to figure out who they are and where they fit in.
Absolutely. It's like this framework for personal growth. And for some, it can even offer a sense of spiritual connection, like a feeling of being guided and supported by something greater than themselves.
It's almost like a modern-day mythology,
Right.
a way of making sense of the world and our place in it.
Exactly. And in a world that often feels increasingly secular, astrology can fill that spiritual void for some.
So we're seeing why this is resonating so strongly with young people in 2025. But what about the skeptics? The people who kind of roll their eyes at the whole astrology thing.
I get it.
What would you say to them?
I'd say keep an open mind. Astrology is a complex and ancient system, and there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. It's not about like blind faith or superstition. It's about using observations, symbolism, and intuition to understand ourselves and the world around us.
So even if you don't buy into the idea that the stars literally control our destiny, there's still value in exploring the insight that astrology might offer.
Absolutely. It's like any system of knowledge, there's something to be learned from it, even if you don't agree with everything it proposes.
So it's not about believing or disbelieving, it's about exploring and learning.
Precisely. And who knows, you might even be surprised by what you discover.
Well, you've definitely got me thinking about astrology in a whole new light. But I think we need to address the elephant in the room here, the question that's probably on everyone's mind.
Is it real? Does it actually work?
Yeah, exactly. After all this talk about trends and data and societal influences, we still haven't tackled the fundamental question. Does astrology have any basis in reality? I mean, there's got to be a reason why this ancient practice is still around today, right?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that's been debated for centuries. You've got scientists and skeptics on one side arguing that astrology is nothing more than pseudoscience and wishful thinking.
And then you've got astrologers and believers on the other side, claiming it's an ancient and valid system of knowledge that's been used for centuries to understand human behavior and predict events.
Exactly.
So where do we land on this? Is there any scientific evidence to support astrology?
Well, the short answer is it's complicated. There have been studies, some claiming to find correlations between astrological signs and personality traits or life events.
And others finding no link at all.
Right. So the jury's still out, so to speak.
Hmm.
Mainstream science generally rejects astrology, arguing that there's no plausible mechanism by which the positions of stars and planets could influence our lives.
Yeah, gravity I get, but influencing our personality or career choices, that's a stretch.
Exactly. But proponents of astrology argue that science hasn't yet discovered or understood the subtle energies and connections that they believe are at play.
So it's a matter of faith versus scientific proof?
I guess in a way, yes. Ultimately, it comes down to personal belief. Some people find astrology to be a helpful and insightful tool, regardless of whether or not it can be scientifically proven.
Okay, so we may not have a definitive answer to the is it real question. But what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they navigate this complex and contradictory world of astrology?
I think the key is to approach it with both curiosity and skepticism. Don't dismiss it outright, but don't blindly accept everything it claims either.
Be open to the possibilities. but also think critically and use your own judgment.
Exactly. And remember, astrology is ultimately a tool for self-discovery and personal growth. It's up to each individual to decide how they want to use it and what meaning they want to take from it.
I think that's a great point. Astrology can be a powerful tool if used thoughtfully and intentionally. But now I'm really curious about what the future holds for astrology. Is this just a passing trend, or is it something that's here to stay?
Well, that's the question we'll be exploring in part 3 of our deep dive. We'll be looking at the predictions, the trends, and the potential impact of astrology in the years to come. So stay tuned, because things are about to get cosmic.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into astrology in 2025. And you know what's really got me thinking now is like, where do we go from here? We talked trends, data, pros, cons, all this stuff. But what's next for astrology? Like 5, 10, 15 years down the line, what could it look like?
Right, and if those market predictions we talked about are anything to go by, it seems like astrology is not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, they're saying it could reach over $25 billion by 2034.
Wow, that's huge. So it sounds like astrology's definitely got some staying power. But what will all that growth actually look like? What kind of trends should we be watching out for?
Well, one thing that keeps coming up is personalization. I mean, we're already seeing that with those apps like CoStar, right? But it's probably going to get even more sophisticated as technology keeps advancing.
So like instead of just getting your basic daily horoscope based on your sun sign, you could have a reading that's tailored to your entire birth chart.
Yeah.
Taking into account like all those unique planetary placements and everything.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. We could have these super advanced AI-powered astrological consultations that factor in your specific goals, even your mood that day, to create this like hyper-personalized cosmic roadmap.
Okay, that's kind of blowing my mind a little bit. Personalized AI astrology consultations. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right, but it's not as far-fetched as it sounds. I mean, technology's evolving so quickly, who knows what's possible.
True, true. So besides this whole AI astrology thing, what other trends are you keeping an eye on?
Another really interesting area is the integration of astrology into other parts of our lives. We're already seeing this a little bit with astro yoga and moon cycle tracking and stuff, but it could go way beyond that.
What do you mean?
Like, what if you could get career guidance based on your birth chart, or have an astrologer help you plan your finances? I mean, some people already believe that certain planetary alignments can affect things like your luck with money. It might sound a little out there, but it's not totally implausible.
I never thought about it that way. And you know, with this growing interest in holistic health and wellness these days, it makes you wonder if astrology could play a role in that too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people are already turning to astrology for all sorts of things related to their health and well-being.
So we're talking about astrology influencing things like our careers, our finances, even our health. It's almost like it could become this thread that connects all these different aspects of our lives.
Yeah. Exactly. And with technology constantly evolving, I can only imagine what kind of new and innovative ways we'll see astrology being used in the future. I mean, we've already talked about those AI astrologers, but what about virtual reality experiences based on your birth chart? Or maybe even wearable tech that tracks your planetary transits and sends you like real-time insights.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Right.
I guess the big question is, what does all of this mean for us here and now? What should people be thinking about as they navigate this ever-evolving world of astrology?
That's a great question, and I think the most important thing is to approach astrology with a sense of curiosity and discernment. Don't just blindly follow trends or take everything at face value. Do your own research, experiment a little, and see what works for you.
So use astrology as a tool for self-discovery, but don't let it become a crutch or a substitute for your own critical thinking.
Exactly. Remember, as we discussed earlier, the stars might incline us, but they don't compel us.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we all have the power to choose our own path.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Astrology can be a really fascinating and enriching journey, but ultimately it's up to each of us to chart our own course.
And to all our listeners out there, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you could ask the stars for guidance on one thing, what would it be? Leave us a comment and let us know. Until next time, keep looking up and keep exploring the wonders of the cosmos.